murder, and everything else. My name is Joy.
And my name is Cheryl. Joy and I are two very old friends who love to talk about murder and everything else. As we record this, Joy reminded me this morning, as of this recording, it's going to be a couple of weeks after that today is Valentine's Day. So happy belated Valentine's Day. But what I wanted to ask you, Joy, is do you guys celebrate it and what do you do?
When the kids were little, we used to do little like chocolates and cards, and it's so fun to fill out those little cards and have the kids take them to school with little candies and give them to their friends. Then they'd come home with a big bag of goodies. And but I will say that my hubby showed up last night with a delicious cake and it had like hearts on the top. It was like a white
Aw.
cake with chocolate frosting, the very best kind of chocolate frosting that we all love. It's not the gooey fondant kind and it's not the buttercream kind. It's like the frosting kind, the sugar
Mm-hmm.
frosting. I
Mm-hmm.
love that shit. I could smear that shit all over my body and lick it off. Well, I have a hard time on my body, but maybe I smear it on his body, but it's so good.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so we got to have some Valentine's Day cake. And then I ate so many chocolates that I have a stomach ache today. And yeah, so not really what I would call a celebration, but you know, uh we yeah, it's
You do
just
a little something. You do a little
yeah, well,
something.
he did a little something. Anyway, rolling into updates, guys. I have so many great updates. First of all, I wanted to see if Chalk and Joan, remember from the Golden Bachelorette, were still together. And surprise, surprise, they are still together. So maybe
Oh, that's
love does,
nice.
yeah, maybe love does win in the end on Valentine's Day. What say you, Cheryl?
Well, how long has it been?
Maybe 4 or 5 months.
Okay. Let's check back in when it's 4 or 5 years. Not that I'm cynical or anything.
Yeah. But I think it's kind of cool. Like, usually they're broken up in the first year. It usually doesn't make it past 6 months.
Well, you just said it's only been 4 or 5 months.
I know, but I'm just saying, if they're going to break up, they usually break up under 6 months.
Oh, okay. I thought you said a year. You're contradicting yourself.
It's so interesting, Cheryl. The ones that stay married have been married for like 25 years. But
Hmm.
the couples that break up tend to break up right away.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I hope you're right. I forgive me for my cynicism, but you know, we'll see.
Well, I felt like they were a really good couple from the get-go.
Hmm. And didn't we think that about Jerry, Gary, and Teresa?
No, I thought he liked Dirty Dancer. You said after the late night, the fantasy suite where she was wearing her little black number that she must have like given him a really like top grade upsies downsies.
Yeah. Oh.
Guys, have you ever noticed if I say anything sexually related, Cheryl gets almost like an acid reflux kind of reaction.
I
It's
do.
either like a vomit kind of sound or like a heavy burping sound. It's all
It's my natural reaction.
it's her natural charisma. Anyway, roaring on, my other update is we need to welcome not one, not two, but three new countries to our list of countries. And the countries are Sweden, New Zealand, and Mexico.
Cool. Yay. Woohoo.
It's so cool.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I remember saying a couple weeks back, or maybe it was months, or maybe it was years, that I couldn't believe that Mexico wasn't on the list. There are neighbors to the south. So welcome Mexico, welcome Sweden, which is a little further away, and welcome New Zealand, which is like, oh, fuck, ton of miles away. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then also last week we talked, remember last week we did you know or do you care? And you had asked me about the generations because I talked about boomers. Okay, I'm going to start with boomers. Baby boomers were born from 1946 to 1964. So you are a boomer.
Mm-hmm.
And this was named for the large increase in births after World War II. Then it's Gen X, which is what I am, born 1965 to 1980. This generation was called also the latchkey generation because they were often left at home alone after school. Next are the millennials or Gen Y, which was born in 1981 to 1996. Then it's Gen Z, born 1997 to 2012. And this generation is the second youngest generation. And then the new generation is Gen Alpha, born 2013 to 2022. And it's made up of children born after the millennial generation. And you know what my kids call them? My kids call them the iPad generation. It's the
That's
kids.
me then.
Yeah, it's the kids who are born with iPads in front of them that you see at restaurants and like in shopping carts that can't actually go anywhere with their parents unless their face is like crammed into an iPad.
Oh
So
gosh.
there you have it. Those are the generations. Anyway, Cheryl, you got any updates?
I do have an update. I'm just going to basically read a headline because we don't have time to get into it. But Madeline Soto. So remember we did an episode on her death.
Oh,
Madeline Soto
yeah.
was killed. So her former teacher is charged with enticing minors for sex acts or enticing a minor for sex acts. Not her. Well, so far, I mean, but I was just like, my God, this poor girl had so much like darkness around
Yeah.
her, you know. It doesn't say from what I've just briefly, like I said, I'm just reading a headline. I didn't really look into it look into it, extensively. Have not seen anything where she was connected to him, but just to have another pedophile as someone in her life is just like, it's just too much. Like, and all these things now about these female teachers abusing their students, all of this coming out. Have you noticed that, the
Well,
rise in the
I think
female teachers?
I'll be totally honest, Cheryl. I think that
No, I
it's
want you to
been
lie to us.
I think it's been there all along, but
Just
with like, remember CCTV, remember all the cameras that are around, and also background checks, and also children advocating and DNA evidence. I feel like there is more awareness for those things and it's coming out more. Remember, a lot of times back in the day when children would come forward, they would just, you know, move the kid to a new classroom or shut the kid up. And, it was just business, or they'd take the priest and move him to a new diocese. I mean, seriously. Or the
yeah.
teacher and move them to a new school. So, now people have to stand and face the music.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, so her teacher, I think it was a music teacher that was arrested.
Wow.
Anyway, stay tuned for that.
Anywho, roaring on to shout outs. I have a shout out to the very funny Jim Gaffigan. Last weekend, my husband and I went to a comedy show and we listened to Jim Gaffigan, and the guy who opened for him, his name is Ted Alexandro. He was just as funny to me as Jim Gaffigan, but I was also really high. So that might be part of what made everything really funny. And also thanks to Susan and Howie for making it a fun night. They bought me a pretzel, and nothing is worse than being stuck in a concert for like 1.5 hours and having the munchies and there being no food. So when they brought the pretzel, I turned to my husband. I'm like, in a very loud stage whisper, I said, "Don't eat really fast and don't eat it all because I have the munchies and I'm going to savor this." And then I proceeded to just like smack away on my little, like, tidbits of pretzel until it was gone. And then I had nothing to eat.
And did you have something to wash down said pretzel? Because
I
they're so
did.
dry. They're
I had
so
a
dry.
oh yeah, and also remember when you get high, sometimes you get dry mouth. So I had a nice Diet Coke, but then I had a pee. So it was just like,
Oh my
you know,
gosh.
there's a lot happening
That's a
when,
lot.
but they were so
Ah.
funny, you guys. And I have to be honest, Jim Gaffigan was not on my top list of funny guys, but it was great.
Well, I love Jim Gaffigan. I've been
I do
listening to
too.
him for years. Listen, I love raunchy comics too, like Chris Rock, but and Dave Chappelle. Love those guys. But I also have a deep respect for people who can make me laugh and not have to use one single curse word. I think that's an art. I really
Yeah.
do. And I love Jim Gaffigan. But I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It
I
was
because I
so fun, but my husband, on the other side of my husband was a lady, true story. And after every joke that Jim Gaffigan made, she would repeat the joke out loud and laugh. And he was like, he said it was like he was listening to the show twice.
Oh God, that is so annoying. That's like going to a
Oh,
concert, a music concert, and wanting to hear your, favorite musician sing or singer sing, and someone's belting out the song behind your head, and
what's
you would
wrong with
actually,
that?
yeah, I was gonna say you would be the one belting out the song, the
Oh
ABBA
my God.
song.
I know those of you who've been listening, you know I'm a nanny, and I can't tell you how many times a song will come on the radio or whatever. I'll say, Alexa, play Pink Martini, or Alexa, play the Eagles, or whatever song will come on. And the oldest girl, she's 4, she'll yell at me, don't sing, because I'll start singing. And I'm like, yikes. I feel like I feel like we all need to adopt the communication style of a 4-year-old.
Right?
Because
Oh my
if
God.
we could just go through life and be like, "Shut up! Don't sing! I don't like your hair like that." And not take it personally. I feel like, life would be so much easier.
Oh my God. Words of wisdom from a 4-year-old.
Yeah. Anyway, Cheryl,
Oh
you got any
God.
shout outs?
I have to do a repeat shout out because he helped me the other week. But my chiropractor, Dr. Howard Fern, if any of you live in Arizona, in this area, in the Gilbert area, his chiropractic practice is called A Plus Chiropractic. I woke up one morning and could barely walk because my right hip was bothering me, and I went to see him, and they always fit me in. They're one of the places that fit you in as soon as they can. And he did his magic. Like if you ever watch any of those TikToks of people getting their back cracked and all this stuff, and he
Mhm.
tugged on so it's my right hip that was hurting, and he did all his magic, and then he tugged on my right leg, and it
And
sounded
that's
like a
what she said.
thousand. God,
I'd like him to tug on my leg.
Jesus Christ.
Ugh.
Um, and he reset me, put everything back in place, and then I could walk after that. It's amazing. For anyone who doesn't believe in chiropractors, I just have to tell you that you don't know what you're missing, because your a skeletal, being could be out of place, and you just need one thing put back in place, and then you're fine. I could walk
When
after that.
Hey guys, guess what? Elena would be so excited. I think we just kept that under 30 minutes. Anyway, we
Sorry,
are
Elena.
we are back this week with murder. What you got for us, Cheryl?
Boy, are we ever back to murder. So just to let you guys know, this is going to be a long one. So we are going to do
That's
this
what
in,
she said.
oh my gosh. So we are going to have to take this in 2 parts. So just stay with us because it's going to be a good one and a gruesome one, just as it always is. I have followed this case from the time it happened, and I don't know what it was. what it was about this case that just grabbed my attention. But this was 31 years ago, and I was living in Oregon during the trial. And Joy, I've told you this, I watched every single second of it. I was
Oh.
teaching dance in the evening, so I was able to watch the trial all day, and I was invested. I was invested. And I have to, looking back, I have to say it was probably the start of my interest in true crime. It had celebrity, money, race, domestic violence, and of course, murder. So we're going to talk
Oh,
today
don't
about,
forget about the car chase. Remember,
yes, oh, yes, oh,
chases
yes,
like televised car chases were not a thing
oh,
beforehand.
yeah. We're going to get into that. So today we are talking about OJ, Nicole, and Ron. And I think I can use first names only, and everyone will know who we're talking about just by using first names. My first source is Netflix's American Manhunt, OJ Simpson. They their teaser is the white Bronco, the gloves, the trial of the century. This documentary series investigates the shocking murder case that became a cultural phenomenon. So since I was hooked on everything about the trial in the 31 years since then, I have watched every single special that I've come across, every documentary. And so this came out, this Netflix American Manhunt OJ Simpson came out this year. It just came out 2025.
Wow.
And I thought at first I was like, I mean, I've watched every single special for 31 years, and believe me, there were a lot of specials, and I suspect that the interest in this case will never die. There's always going to be documentaries coming up. So at first I was like, I don't think I need to watch this, but of course I watched it. um, and I learned a couple of new things, but it just brought up all the old interest in it. And so, and then Joy said she didn't really follow it.
At all.
So, which is interesting, but you did know about the car chase, which it was actually a slow speed chase, and I'll talk about that later. But so that the new documentary, and the fact that Joy does not know all the details, this is what made me want to talk about it today. But I also want to say my other sources are Wikipedia, New York Post, Today.com, Vanity Fair, FamousTrials.com. So let's talk about OJ, Nicole, and Ron. So OJ is Orenthal James Simpson. He was born on July 9th, 1947 in San Francisco, California. He was 47 years old at the time of the murders. He was also known by his nickname, The Juice. He was an American professional football player, actor, if you can call him that, and a media personality. OJ was regarded as one of the greatest running backs of all time. He played college football for the USC Trojans, where he won the Heisman Trophy. He then went on to play in the National Football League for 11 seasons, primarily with the Buffalo Bills. And remember, he
Ooh,
did that Hertz
remember,
commercial.
yep. And remember when we interviewed Coach Sean with the women's track and field at Duke University? If you guys haven't listened to that, go back and listen. He also signed with the Buffalo Bills. He was a fifth round draft pick. And
That's right.
yeah, so I find that super interesting. And also, Cheryl asked him, do you think he did it? So go back and listen to that.
Yeah. You have to go listen to it to find out what he said. So Nicole Brown, who would later be Simpson, was born on May 19th, 1959 in Frankfurt, West Germany. She was 35 when she was murdered. She was the second of four daughters. She also had two older half-sisters and one older half-brother from her father's previous marriage. After moving to the United States, she attended Rancho Alamitos High School in Garden Grove, California. She graduated from Dana Hills High School in Dana Point, California in 1976, and she was known to be a devoted mother. She loved her children. Ronald Lyle Goldman was born on July 2nd, 1968, in Illinois. He was 25 when he was murdered. After his parents divorced in 1974, he was raised primarily by his father, Fred Goldman. The family relocated to Southern California when Ron was 18. He had a younger sister, Kim, and they were exceptionally close. There's a famous video of him at a party like a year before the murder saying, "Who knows where I'll be next year?" And he's doing a toast. It's very
Oh,
sad.
wow.
Yeah, he became a licensed emergency medical technician, but then decided he wanted to own a bar or restaurant. So, how did these three people's lives intersect? Nicole Brown met O.J. Simpson in 1977 when she was 18 years old and he was 30. So, he was 12 years her senior. She worked as a server at a trendy Beverly Hills club called Daisy. O.J. pursued Nicole even though he was married to his wife, Marguerite Whitley. Marguerite and O.J. would divorce in 1979, and O.J. and Nicole got married on February 2nd, 1985. They had two kids, Sydney and Justin. But then Nicole filed for divorce in 1992. However, they tried to reconcile in 1993. And in 1994, O.J. would kill Nicole. Ron was working as a waiter at a restaurant called Mezzaluna. He and Nicole became friends, and sometimes on his way to work, he'd stop at a Starbucks near the apartment where his friends lived. Together, they would grab coffee and occasionally run into Nicole. And of course, there's rumors that there was more between them. Who cares? That's their business, But a lot of people close to them said that they were just friends.
Wait, was there Starbucks back in 1994?
Yeah, when we were living in Oregon, I remember Starbucks being there.
Huh. I had a friend who worked at the flagship Starbucks store in Seattle.
Yeah, because I remember when we were in Oregon, that's when it was like, wait, what year did you say? Because this is 90s, not 80s.
You said in 94.
Yeah. So, yeah, because I remember when we were in Oregon in downtown Portland, that became the time where like a Starbucks was popping up on literally every corner.
But that was 1998, 1999, 2000.
Well, you can blame, if this is misinformation, you can blame it on the internet.
Okay.
No, I was in Oregon 93, 94 to 2001. So
I was there 98 to 2004.
And there were no Starbucks in your memory?
There was Starbucks by then, but so
also remember, this is Brentwood, California.
Yeah,
maybe it took a while to hit Oregon.
Also, I wonder how long they'd been hanging out.
Yeah, there's all this salacious people like to get, but it doesn't really matter, right? Because at this point, she's not with OJ, so she is a free agent. She's free to do what she wants with whom she chooses. So let's go to Sunday, June 12th, 1994 in Brentwood, California. If you aren't familiar with Brentwood, California, it is a more affluent area of Los Angeles. So these are Brentwood neighbors that testified in the trial. And I remember them back in 1995 watching the trial. So Pablo Fenves is watching the news at 10 p.m. with his wife, and he hears a dog barking. He describes the dog's bark as a plaintive wail. And I remember when he testified the next day, the headlines were plaintive wail. And I had never heard that word before. So in case you're wondering what a plaintive wail is, it's a sad sound that expresses suffering or woe. For example, you might describe a cat's meow or a wounded animal's cry as plaintive. So I just remember
a plaintive is a sad sound that comes from the mouth of a plaintiff.
Oh, God. Okay.
I'm on a roll.
You heard it here first. Now, another neighbor, Robert Heidstra, says he hears two voices. The first one is a clear young male adult voice saying, "Hey, hey, hey." Stephen Schwab says he's watching the Dick Van Dyke Show, which ended just before 10:30 p.m. Shortly after that, approximately 10:55 p.m., he takes his dog for a walk, and he comes across another dog standing on a street corner, and this dog follows him home. When he gets home, he talks to his neighbors, Sukru Botsepi and his wife, Bettina Rasmussen, and Sukru and Bettina decide they're going to take this dog on a walk to see if the dog will make its way back home. The dog is a brown and white Akita, and Bettina describes what looks like mud on the dog's paws, which we will find out it's not just mud. The dog takes them down Bundy Drive. The dog stops at a walkway, and the couple look down the walkway leading up to the residence, and they see a river of blood. If you see these pictures, the walkway is literally a river of blood.
Wow.
And they call 911, and they tell them there's a dead body. This is going to be the start of a case that come to be known as the trial of the century. So, the detectives find a female wearing a black dress and a puddle of blood lying in the walkway. Mark Furman, LAPD detective, and you have to remember his name because he is essential to this whole story in not a good way. This guy, he's had to carry this, and on the documentary, he says he is going to have to live with what he's been branded as, and he admits that when he was younger, he had some issues. So just remember his name. At that point, he was 19 years. He served 19 years as a homicide detective, and he's called onto the scene. So he's not one of the first officers on the scene, but he is one of the first detectives. So upon walking onto the scene, he sees something out of the corner of his eye, and he finds a white male lying in the bushes, and he can't see the cause of death of either of these two people. There's so much blood that he could not tell the color of the female's hair. A dark stocking cap and one glove are found at the scene. Remember that, just one glove at the scene at Bundy Drive. Bloody footprints are seen leading up to the back gate. So in the back of this residence, there's an alley, so you can come in either that way or through the front. So there's bloody footprints leading up to the back gate, and there are blood drops and a bloody fingerprint on the back gate. Along with the bloody footprints leading to the back gate are blood drops on the left side of the shoe prints, indicating the perpetrator may have been bleeding on their left side. So remember that too.
Okay.
In the residence, they find two children upstairs, and the children are taken.
Shit. Are the children sleeping?
Yep, they slept through the whole thing.
I didn't realize that. How old are the children?
Let me look that up. They were young.
But yeah. Wow. Were those Nicole and OJ's kids?
Yep.
And those kids must be in their 40s now?
Let's see. So Sydney, the girl, was 8 years old, and Justin was only 5. Yeah.
Wow. So if this was 94 and this is 2020, so they're 30 and 38?
39 and 36.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were upstairs when their mother was murdered. So
that's horrible.
So when the police and detectives arrive, the children are taken to the West LA police station. So when they go in the residence, they find an envelope that has O.J. Simpson's return address on it. And Detective Mark Furman realizes that this is O.J.'s ex-wife, Nicole Brown, and this is going to become a media circus. They later determined the deceased male is Ron Goldman. So and I'll get into it a little later, but Mark Furman, besides having O.J.'s name and address on a return address in the house, he's also been called to domestic violence calls before involving the two of them, so he was kind of
Oh,
familiar. You know, when you're assigned to a certain area, you are coming across these things, and you get to know like the
that's what
residents of
I
that
was
area.
gonna ask. I was gonna ask if there was any like priors for
Yep.
either of these people. And so the cops had come in the past for domestic violence. And I'm going to guess that it's because he had hit her.
Yeah, we're going to get into that too.
Mm.
hmm So he's familiar with OJ and Nicole. So he just knows this is going to become a media circus, and that it sure did, and that's putting it lightly. So now the case is then put in charge of robbery homicide, and so Mark Furman and his boss Ron Phillips, they wait for the new detectives to arrive on scene. So Detective Tom Lang and Detective Phil Van Adder are now in charge of the case. And you know, at that time, and if you are I don't want to say fan because it's not the right word because two people were brutally killed. But
Right.
if you are just like obsessed with this case, like I have been, these people's names, it's like the everybody involved in this, from the prosecutor to the famous Johnny Cochran defense attorney to Cato Kalin and the detectives, their names, Judge Ito, they were doing, SNL skits on the judge. They were almost like celebrities in
Oh,
their own
yeah. I,
right.
I remember watching. So I didn't know. I mean, obviously, I knew who OJ Simpson was because I was obsessed with the Naked Gun movies.
Oh,
And
were you?
he played Norberg in the Naked Gun movie, at least in one of them. I don't know if he did it in the second and third, but I think he did. And he played this bungling cop that was always like getting his arms broken and his legs broken and his in
That's funny.
oh yeah. And because Leslie Nielsen played the main role, who was also kind of a bungling, like idiot.
Right.
But
So
so
at
I knew
so
who
at
O.J.
that
Simpson
time,
was, but
did you
here's
kind of like him? Did you kind of like him because you liked those movies?
oh,
And it's
I
okay.
was
It's okay to
I
say
mean,
yes.
no, I didn't know anything about, like, he didn't stand out in any way. I
Okay.
mean, I thought it was funny, but the thing that's so interesting is I used to watch late night television, and uh every comedian, Jay Leno and
hmm
David Letterman, I mean, they used to make so many jokes about this case, so that the names did become household
They
names.
did.
And they used to, like, it it was kind of like the Menendez brothers. Like, I never
hmm
followed the case, but because the names popped up so routinely in late night, it was like they were household names.
Yeah, and see, and with the Menendez brothers, Eric and Lyle themselves were household names, and but in for this case, everyone, like I said, the detectives to the judge to Cato, um, everyone became a celebrity in their own right. It was
Oh yeah.
beyond, it was bigger than life.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that there's a documentary just came out this year is incredible to me. And like I said, the interest will never die. It's going to go on. 30 years from
So
now, we'll be talking.
fascinating.
Yeah. Okay. So Detective Tom Lang and Detective Phil Van Adder are now in charge of the case. And now the crime scene at Bundy Drive has been cordoned off. Upon arriving at the scene, a bloody envelope slightly open between the two bodies is pointed out to Lang and Van Adder, and they later find out there are prescription glasses in the envelope. So the detectives decide they need to make contact with O.J. Simpson, right? Because he's the father of the two children. So they go to 360 North Rockingham Drive. So they know his address. They got it on the envelope, right, from inside Nicole's house. So
Mhm.
they go to 360 North Rockingham Drive to get in touch with OJ. And So in the documentary, they have Detective Mark Furman. Well, he's no longer a detective. They have Mark Furman criticizing Detective Lang and Van Adder for both leaving the crime scene to notify OJ at Rockingham. So there's a lot of finger pointing, which I had not really seen a lot of until this documentary. So it was like, wow, a lot of time has passed and they feel comfortable saying, I didn't like what he did. I didn't like what he did, you know.
Right.
So Furman's like, why are all of us, so all four detectives, Lang, Van Adder, Furman, and his boss Phillips, they go to Rockingham. Okay, that's OJ's house. When they get there, they notice a white Bronco is parked on the street, sort of haphazardly, like diagonally, like not parallel parked completely. And
Right.
Detective Lang, it stands out to him because he wonders, with this big estate, right, with the gates and everything, why is the Bronco parked outside of it? So they ring the intercom to the house, and no one's answering. And then they notice blood on the door of the Bronco, and so now they have this scene at Bundy Drive with Nicole Simpson, and her ex is OJ Simpson. And now they find blood at OJ Simpson's house. So they feel they need to make contact. And so this is under exigent
Interesting.
circumstance. Under exigent circumstances, they can make an entry without a warrant. So if something sticks out later on legally, they can say there were, circumstances that, forced us to take action. We couldn't wait to get a
Right.
warrant and all of this, because they're thinking OJ might be injured inside, or someone might be injured inside because there's blood on this
Right.
Bronco. So Furman hops the wall and opens the gate. So they go around the premises, and they find Brian Cato Kalin in his bungalow, and they learn that OJ has flown to Chicago. So I want to talk about Cato. They called him Cato. He was targeted by the media and made a celebrity as a liar and a freeloader. He even received death threats. So I know that you don't like him, but I really believe that in the 30 years, or even before 30 years, I believe his good natured personality has endeared him to most of the public. Like, I didn't hate him. I didn't think he was stupid. He was just really goofy and on the stand. And he talks about it. He was really nervous. He was like this surfer boy, really good looking. He's still good looking. He's aged well. But on the stand, it seemed like he was just this goofball. But he said he was just very nervous and he really wanted to tell the truth. And you got to think about, a lot of people were friends with both OJ and Nicole. So imagine being in that position, right? So,
Well, I think also the other thing that came out wasn't Cato trying to be an actor or something? And
yeah. So,
he lived in
mhm,
this like pool house or whatever, this bungalow slash, carriage house. And he kept an eye on things and house sat for them and
yep.
did a wide variety of things. And I think the thing too that kind of came out was because he was a laughing stock to like late night co-hosts and
Hmm.
I'm sorry, to hosts, because they would
Hmm.
always talk about, Cato this and Cato that.
I mean, imagine that you're just living your life and you get caught up in something like this. And anyone who's involved in this, their lives were never the same,
Yeah.
for better or for worse. And I think that it was probably not very good for him at first. And then he climbed out of it. That's how I feel. It's not like I followed him all these years, but he is currently on a podcast and a YouTube channel with Tom Zenner, and it's called 1 Degree of Scandalous. So they talk a lot about OJ. Tom and Cato go and they visit like the old, sites where it happened and all this. So it's very
Wow.
interesting if you want to watch. But I'm a Cato supporter. I think he's a genuine guy that just got caught up in something. He was young. He was super nervous on the stand,
Well,
and he
and
came off.
the other
He
thing
came
is it's not like Cato signed up for being at ground zero for this horrible crime, you know?
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you're just in the wrong time, wrong place at the wrong time.
Exactly. Like you said, he had come out to California to pursue an acting career, and he and Nicole became friends in December of 1993. And he did live in her guest house for about a year. He paid rent and helped to take care of the children, just like you said, as part of the
Mhm.
living arrangement. And she trusted him with her kids. They loved him so much that they named their Akita after him. So their Akita dog was named Kato. So when
Hmm.
Cato, the man, was moving out of Nicole's guest house, OJ offered one of his bungalows to Cato, and that's how Cato ended up living at 360 North Rockingham Drive. So on the night of the murders, June 12th, 1994, Cato was on the phone with a friend, and while he's on the phone, he hears a pounding on his wall, three like hard thumps, hard enough to make the picture on his wall move. So he asks his friend on the phone if they just had an earthquake, and she says she didn't feel or hear anything. So on the night when the detectives are there, he tells them about the noises he heard, and this prompts Detective Furman to go check the backside of the bungalow. And guess what he finds? He finds a black glove, and
Hmm.
it's by an air conditioner. So this person, I mean, this is, I'm just going to say it, what I think, ran into in the dark, happened to run into the air conditioner by accident, dropped the glove. That's what the banging that Cato hears. So Furman
Interesting.
realizes. So remember, I said there was one glove found at Bundy, right, where Nicole and Ron's bodies are.
Right.
So Furman realizes it looks like the same black glove. It's a black leather glove, and he they find this glove. They feel like it's a match to the other one. So now the Rockingham estate is a crime scene as well as Bundy. And Furman is asked to go back to
Wait,
Bundy and
Bundy is where Nicole and Ron's bodies were, and Rockingham is where O.J. Simpson lives.
lives. Correct.
But
Correct.
Cheryl, okay, can I just stop you really quickly? You
Yes,
are
please.
you already said that they went to Rockingham and found blood on the Bronco.
Hmm. So they found blood on the Bronco. They're trying at this
Oh,
point.
like what more do they need?
Oh
Like,
God. Apparently, oh, well, we can get into that. Yeah, see, that's the whole thing. There was a mountain of evidence in this case. This is just the beginning. This is them
oh,
seeing blood only on the door. They have only observed blood on the door of the white Bronco outside of OJ's house. And they're like, someone could be hurt in there. We need to just forget the warrant. We need to, find out what's going on in there. And then they, find Cato. Nobody's answering from the house. So they find Cato. Cato says, they ask him, and he's like, about that night. And he's like, I heard this. They go in the back, they find a glove, and it looks to be a match at the one at Bundy Drive where Nicole and Ron are. Okay. So now the detectives call OJ at his hotel in Chicago because they found out from Cato that he's in Chicago. And they tell OJ his ex-wife has died. They tell him she's been killed. And OJ
wait,
says,
wait,
oh
wait,
my,
wait, 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 wait. So he raced home after killing them and flew to Chicago? Like,
yep.
there are flight records. Can't they get the flight records?
Yeah, well, there's no dispute that he went to Chicago. But there is, the detectives. Well, we can talk about this. You can ask
Well,
me.
like now, Cheryl, they would say like, "Oh, he had booked the ticket at the last minute, or he paid market value and paid and flew, coach, or he flew first class and he paid 2 grand and bought the ticket that evening." You know what I mean? Like, where's that information?
Well, the thing is, the question. Actually, you can include this in there. Anyway, um, the the issue for defense is they're saying there's not enough time. You can ask me about this so we can talk about it because
No,
I'll
no,
tell you.
there's not enough time for what? I
There
don't.
was not enough time for him to kill Nicole, get back to his place, clean up, and then meet the limo driver that comes to pick him up to go to the airport. And I'm going to talk about all of this, but they lived very close together. And
Oh,
Lang,
I thought there was like a freeway chase.
No, that's later. You're getting ahead of yourself.
Oh, see, I thought he killed them. Then he got in the Bronco and see, I told you, I don't know anything about this case. And then
Okay.
he drove away and then they were showing him driving 45 down the 405 and they had like helicopters and 600 cops and I was like, he's not even going 100 miles an hour.
So they found the left-handed glove, right? I mean, they found the other glove at Rockingham. So now detectives, they know that he's at in Chicago, and they contact him at his in his room, and they tell him his ex-wife has died. They tell him she's been killed, and he says, "Oh my God, Nicole's been killed. Oh my God, she's dead." So he says he'll be on the next plane back to LA. However, he never asked how Nicole was killed, where she was killed, where
Huh.
his kids were. He doesn't ask about his kids. He
Oh,
doesn't
that's
ask
so interesting.
he doesn't ask if they're okay. So
And
of course
here's
by
the other thing, Cheryl. There's no cell phones back then. So it's
mm-hmm,
not like they have cell phone record or texting or Google searches. It's so interesting how having technology has just made it that much harder to commit a crime.
right? It's true. It's true. So of course media has caught wind of the murders by now, and this is a media circus. There
Media
are photographers and
shitstorm.
media camped out at both locations, Bundy Drive and Rockingham. I mean, it's one of those where their photographers are in the trees and shit like that,
Oh
because
my
it is
God.
literally a circus. So besides the blood on the door of the Bronco outside the Rockingham, there's blood found all over inside the Bronco, on the steering wheel, the driver's door, the console, and blood drops are noticed outside the Bronco. And the blood drops lead up the driveway to the front door of OJ's house.
Oh God.
So now OJ arrives home from Chicago, and he's at Rockingham, and he's stopped. He thinks he's just going to walk on in, but he's stopped from going into the house because it's now a crime scene, and he is
Right.
handcuffed in front of the whole world. And he asks why all the police are there, and they tell him there's a blood trail from the Bronco to your house. And he gets very quiet, and one of the detectives says OJ started hyperventilating and saying, "Oh man, oh man, oh man," over and over again. So
Huh.
now OJ is taken to the police station for an interrogation, and they find he has an injury on his left middle finger. Okay. Remember
Mhm.
the blood drops on the left side of the shoe prints? And then he's asked about it, and he tells different stories about how he got this cut. And he says, one of the stories is he broke a glass in the hotel room when he heard about Nicole. He says he cut it while golfing.
Why not
And
ask the people in the hotel room, did you
they
find the
did,
broken glass?
they sure did. They did. And it
Oh,
had some blood. But if that's the case, why all the other stories?
right.
So when confronted with all the blood found in the Bronco and leading up to the house, he said he bleeds all the time. He said he's constantly cutting himself. He
Maybe he was
refuses,
a cutter.
could be, he refuses a polygraph test, and he is released after this interview. And this interrogation is never played in court. So
Why?
now, I you have to ask the defense and prosecution. We have to ask the prosecution. This is the
Okay, can I
prosecution.
ask you a quick question?
Hmm.
I know you're going to laugh because I don't know anything about court cases. Who's the plaintiff and who's the prosecution?
The plaintiff is the one that's bringing the charges. So in this
Okay.
case, it's the state, right, against him.
And the
So it's
prosecution is the guilty party?
no, prosecution is the one that's they're prosecuting the defendant. So the plaintiff in this case is the prosecution for the state,
Okay.
and OJ is going to be the defendant and
Oh, the
his
defendant.
defense team.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're defending yourself, so that means you're the one that's being accused.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
Okay, so 2 days after the murder, OJ has hired Robert Shapiro. And of course, all the attorneys became celebrities too. Robert Shapiro is a high-end celebrity attorney, and he was known for making deals for his high
Yeah, and
profile. But OJ Simpson's blood is found at the Bundy Drive crime scene where Nicole and Ron were found, and the blood drops tailing to the left of the shoe prints are OJ's. The blood in the Bronco are from OJ, Nicole, and Ron. It's OJ's blood trailing from the Bronco up the driveway and into his
Whoa.
house. OJ, Nicole, and Ron's blood are found on the right-hand glove at Rockingham. So at
Just
OJ's house.
from his finger cut?
No, this is from the crime scene. So all the evidence that was collected, the blood drops, all the blood at Bundy, all the blood at Rockingham, this is what they determined. That it was OJ's blood was found at the crime scene. The blood drops on the left side of the foot shoe prints were OJ's. The blood in the Bronco.
But Cheryl, I have to stop you right here, and I'm not trying to be problematic, but this was 1994. How accurate is the forensic testing back then?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right, because the defense was able to raise a lot of doubt about this. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, okay?
Okay.
So they say that all three, OJ, Nicole, and Ron's blood are found on the right-hand glove found at OJ's house behind Cato's bungalow. And there are 2 black socks found at the foot of OJ's bed having Nicole's blood on them.
I'm sorry, circumstantial evidence. I mean, the blood on the frickin' Bronco should have been it should have been cut and dried. This, it shouldn't have drug out. You know what I mean? Like it just makes no sense to me.
That's why this case lives on in 31 years after. Yep. So June 17.
I feel like the crucifixion of Jesus Christ has, a lot more holes in it than this.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
this is why everyone
so black and white to me.
Yeah, exactly. So June 17, 1994, 5 days after the murders. So now with all of this that they found, murder charges are filed early in the morning, and there is an arrest warrant for OJ, and the attorneys are notified. This is where it gets crazy, like crazier than a movie. And I lived through this. I remember seeing stuff on TV. So instead of going to OJ and arresting them, he's allowed to turn himself in. So Detective Lang is in this documentary saying, I don't know why he was allowed to do that. And he was really mad because by 11 a.m., OJ is a no-show. He doesn't show up. And the LAPD says that OJ didn't receive preferential treatment, but why? Why, Lang is like, why couldn't we just go get him? And this is what it turns into. So by 11 a.m., OJ's a no-show. At 1:40 p.m., when OJ is still missing, the LAPD commander holds a press conference to announce that OJ is now a fugitive. Did you see this Did you see this when they made this live announcement that this celebrity is a fugitive?
No,
it was so big.
I only heard about this case from nighttime talk shows. That was it, from like David Letterman and Jay Leno and Johnny Carson. Was Johnny Carson still on TV at this time? Anyway, those are the only ways I heard about this case. And I have to tell you that everybody saw video clips of this slow speed chase.
Yeah. Oh, so this is where the slow speed chase happens. The infamous slow speed chase. Named the slow speed chase because they were going 30 miles an hour or something on the freeway. So
OJ stopped and picked up someone's grandpa and said, "Hey, could you drive the getaway car?"
Oh my God. I mean, I remember watching. So this coverage of this chase interrupts the NBA finals. I remember standing in front of my TV with the NBA finals on, because there was a time when I was really into the Lakers. And
I forgot about that.
The story comes on, and now the Lakers goes down into the corner into picture-in-picture. Not the Lakers. The NBA finals goes down into the, and I don't know, maybe it could be the Lakers. Anyway, the NBA finals shifts down into the corner into a small picture. Or it could have been the other way around, which way it was. they interrupt the NBA finals to show the slow speed chase. And it's OJ's friend driving this white Bronco. His name's Al Collins. You guys all know him as AC. He's driving a white Bronco, and it's his own white Bronco. So yes, they each have a white Bronco. I guess good friends get matching cars. So AC is driving and OJ is in the back seat.
That
At one
Bronco
point,
was so popular back then.
oh yeah, I love the baby Broncos. If I could get one, I would get one of those. They're cute. Anyway, so while he's driving, AC's driving on this slow speed chase, he gets in touch with Detective Lang and tells him, he gets in touch with Detective Lang on a phone. So, remember those big ass phones?
Yeah. Those are great.
So he gets in touch with Detective Lang and he tells them, you have to have the police back off because OJ has a gun to his head. And all this shit's coming out on the news. And it was just like, what? It was just crazy. People, if you guys, I'm sure, have seen the video of the people that are lining the streets.
Is OJ holding a gun to his own head?
Yes, to his own head. And we'll get into. I don't know. It's a handgun, whatever.
Wow.
It wasn't a water gun.
I don't remember that.
Yep. He's telling Detective Lang, you've got to have the police back off because there's like this line of police cars just following them slowly. So there are people that have lined the streets and the freeway overpasses. They're hanging signs. They're screaming words of support for OJ. And so now Detective Lang gets on the phone with OJ, and OJ is despondent and he's apologetic, and Detective Lang is trying to convince him to come back, give himself up before someone gets hurt. And
you know
OJ
what? Oh my God, I'll tell you right now that his behavior is very, very, very telling for someone who is involved in so much domestic abuse. You know, one of the things that a lot of people do who are domestic abusers is when they are done abusing, like when they've hit or when they've beaten or when they've hurt somebody physically, a lot of times it's apologies, almost like this despondent, apologetic behavior. Even a lot of times their victims will say that they cried. And let's face it, Cheryl, the vast majority of people who are domestic abusers are men. And so I'm just going to say that a lot of times they will cry and they will beg for apology. They will say they don't deserve the person. They'll say that they don't want to live anymore. And then a lot of times they'll turn it back and say, I did it because I had to. You forced me to do it. It's so crazy that you just said that he was despondent and apologetic and that Lang is trying to convince him to come back and give himself up because his behavior is obviously that of someone who is guilty as sin.
Guilty, I know. Is this are these the actions of an innocent person?
No.
I mean, OJ goes on to tell Detective Lang on the phone that he couldn't do it. We know what that means on the freeway. He couldn't do it in a field. He wanted to do it at Nicole's grave. He wanted to do it at his house. So Detective Lang continues to convince OJ not to kill himself. Okay, while this is happening, this is like, it's like it even in a movie.
I know it sounds horrible, but it's like, aren't there recorded 911 calls, or was this before?
Oh no, you can hear it.
Of Nicole Brown calling 911 when the cops would respond, because I'll guarantee you that if we could talk to her, she would say the number of times that I had to convince OJ not to kill himself after he would beat me up was like 1,000,000 times.
That I didn't come across, because I think that when you're a narcissist like that, I don't even think he really intended to kill himself. This is a cry for it's pity. It is.
He wants like, pity. Oh, woe is me. Feel sorry for me that I had to hurt you.
Exactly. So I have not come across that where she says that he's going to kill. No, it's not that. It's never that, because I don't think he intended. So while he's in the Bronco on the freeway and talking to Detective Lang, while this slow speed chase is going on, this was crazy. Like I said, you can watch it in a documentary and whatever now, but I remember living this. So Robert Kardashian, which is who you talked about earlier, he's the father of the Kardashian girls. He was a good friend of OJ's
And their son. There's a son too.
and the son, and he was a good friend of OJ's at that time. At that time. So while this thing is going on and it's interrupting the NBA finals, Robert Kardashian comes on air, okay?
Oh my
And
God.
he reads a letter that
Oh
OJ had given him before OJ went on the run, and it sounds like a suicide letter. Now,
oh my God. I didn't even know there was a letter.
I mean, Joy, this was unreal. Like
It's
I
like a
get
soap
chill.
opera. It's better than a soap opera.
Yeah, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. I
I
mean,
swear to you, I never used to be interested in murder at all. This is all your fault.
you're welcome very much.
Oh
So so like I said, there's a slow speed chase going on. Detective Lang's trying to convince OJ not to kill himself, and then Robert Kardashian comes on live TV
wow.
and reads what is sounds like a suicide letter that OJ's given him before he's gone on the run. The letter was pretty long. Kardashian edits the letter of what he reads on air, and then I also edit it. I just took out what I thought stood out to me. If you want to read the entire letter, you can find anything on the internet these days. This is Kardashian reading the letter, and like I said, this is snippets. To whom it
Redacted.
may concern, redacted, and this is on live TV, you guys. To whom
So
it may concern,
salacious.
to whom it may concern. First, everyone understand. I have nothing to do with Nicole's murder. I loved her, always have, always will. If we had a problem, it's because I loved her so much. I
Wait,
think of,
if
I
we
know
had
that,
a problem?
yeah, because he's going to deflect.
Hmm.
He just, I think of my life and feel I've done most of the things right, most of the right things. So why do I end up like this? I can't go on. No matter what the outcome, people will look and point. I can't take that. I can't subject my children to that. This way they can move on and go on with their lives. And I just want to interject that one of the most important things to OJ that his friends have attested to was his image. So he says, no,
Well, also, it's the second paragraph of the letter, and it says, people will look and point. So why do I end up like this? I can't go on. It's me, 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 me. This is like classic narcissism.
right, right. Now remember, I took snippets from the letter, so you can go online and read the entire thing. And then he says, I'm sorry for the Goldman family. I know how much it hurts. Yikes.
How? How do you know how much it hurts?
Yeah. So he says, at times I have felt like a battered husband or boyfriend, but I loved her. Make that clear to everyone, and I would take whatever it took to make it work. So he feels like she battered him because he
Because
says,
she left him because he was always beating her up. Like, again, this is very classic type of behavior for somebody who is an abuser.
yeah, I know. Just to turn it around on her and say that he felt like a battered husband at times. And he goes on to say, don't feel sorry for me. I've
I
had a
don't.
great
I
life.
don't feel sorry for you.
Joy does not feel sorry for you. Make a note of that. He says, I've had a great life, great friends. Please think of the real OJ and not this lost person. Thanks for making my life special. I hope I helped yours. Peace and love, OJ.
Oh
And
my
the
God.
letter,
Oh my God. He's basically saying,
a
like,
martyr. He's a
I'm
martyr.
such a great person. Think of how great I was in my life. Don't think of me being chased down a freeway with a gun to my head. It's all performative.
Yeah. And the letter was signed with a smiley face, making it ultra weird.
I can tell you exactly what this letter reminds me of, but I'm not going to go there.
Oh
Reminds
God. Well, you're
me
gonna have to tell me
reminds
offline.
me of someone else we know.
Ah.
Mhm.
Okay. So after about 2 hours of this slow speed chase, OJ surrendered at his Rockingham estate. He was holding a framed picture of Nicole when he was arrested at the house, and inside the Bronco,
Oh,
8,000 $8,000 in cash was found, a gun, his passport, and a disguise kit.
yeah, because innocent people take out large sums of cash, their passports, their birth certificates, their marriage licenses, shoves it in a bag and says, let's just drive around town. That's called a
Exactly,
flight risk.
right?
So,
So, guess what? We are going to end it right there today
oh my
because
God,
I'm
if
sure you
I,
guys all know what happens, but don't look anything up until you tune into our episode next time and find out what happens after he is arrested.
you know what, Cheryl? I feel like it's a real crime that I didn't know anything about this case. But you know what else is a crime?
What's that, Joy?
That we are out of time.
That is a crime. Well, thank you for listening, everyone, and don't complicate your day. All creativity, commentary, and opinions in this podcast belong to Cheryl and Joy. Music composed and mixed by Gabe McKeon. Logo and merch managed by Cheryl Yamaguchi. Podcast editing, advertising, and social media managed by Joy McKeon. Legal representation provided by John Bojezic. Please like, subscribe, follow, and listen. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible.com, Amazon Music, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. And remember, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok, or you can email us at murderandeverythingelse@gmail.com.
Bye, fishes.